If you've ever watched any official content about Star Citizen, there is a good chance you would have heard the phrase open development.
Well, now you know it's really open development.
Open development.
Open development.
I thought this was open development. Why can't he show? What about open development? I'm like, what about surprises?
Open development.
Maintain open development.
We have a very open development.
You know, it's still part and parcel of open development and the Star Citizen process to show how our developers work and as much of their process as we can.
Since the beginning of the project, there has been this idea that CIG were going to do many things differently, which they obviously have. One key aspect was that they were going to show people behind the scenes, show a level of insight into game development that no other company had. There are many aspects of this project that deserve criticism, but for many years, CIG have shown behind the scenes footage of devs working and explaining what was going on with the project. Many other companies do share their plans by maybe dropping a video update a few times a year or by writing a post or sharing a roadmap, but none has shared quite as much as Star Citizen has. Weekly pre-recorded shows and live streams, yearly conventions for a game in development, a roadmap that was at one point fairly extensive, and loads of developers posting on the game's forums. But over the last few years, open development has started to feel, well, less open. Chris Roberts, Lord of Star Citizen and Squadron 42, has appeared less and less on video content, and now really only communicates through rare written posts, letters from the chairman. That roadmap that I mentioned, well, it was gutted a couple of years ago. There was a little problem that kept happening. Every time something was delayed or removed from the roadmap, it caused community uproar. And eventually CIG came to the conclusion that it was just causing more hassle than it was worth. So instead of a release view that looked a whole year ahead, the current roadmap only looks at the next immediate patch. And so for backers of the project, it's hard to know what to expect more really than a month or so into the future. And then to the big change this year, CIG's video content. Like I said, for a long time, CIG's video content was very frequent, often multiple things in a week. Backers of the game were constantly fed information and insight into the project in order to keep them engaged and excited about what was going on. Let's let Jared Huckabee, also known as Disco Lando, explain the history of Star Citizen's pre-recorded shows.
ISC began in April of 2019, and since then, we've managed to tell a variety of different stories about more aspects of game development than you're probably likely to find anywhere else. That's 200 episodes so far, including the one that you're watching right now, with no plans to stop or slow down in the future. But this journey didn't start in 2019. That's because ISC is only the latest form of a program that's nearly as old as our project. Before then, we were proud to bring you Around the Verse, the talk show at the end of the universe. First created by Ben Lesnick and Sandy Roberts, and hosted by an entire cavalcade of CIG developers filling in here and there, with segments that sometimes spawned into their own series like Bug Smashers, Lore Maker's Guide to the Galaxy, Ship Shape, and more. That was 228 episodes filled with a whole bunch of people that may not have always known what they were doing behind and sometimes in front of the camera, but doing everything we could to entertain, inform, and simply showcase the folks who make these video games that we're working on. But even they built their legacy on our first weekly behind-the-scenes talk show created by Eric Peterson and Michael Moreland called Wingman's Hangar, with Hangar with 2 A's. Old heads will know. 72 episodes of that set the foundation for CIG video content to come, even if some of it was just what we shouldn't do. Should I bring back hazy thoughts? No? Okay. So, 72 episodes of Wingman's Hangar, 228 episodes of Around the Verse, and 200 episodes of Inside Star Citizen. That makes this show not only the 200th episode of Inside Star Citizen, but also the 500th episode in a legacy that we're very proud to maintain, and hopefully continue to improve upon for years to come.
We're now up to actually about 220 odd episodes, but when that episode was made in 2024, the video content was probably at its peak, and as Jared said, they had no plans to slow down, but they have slowed down. In 2025, CIG's video content has massively reduced. For ISC, Inside Star Citizen, in 2024, they had done 22 episodes by the end of July. In 2025, they've done 8 episodes by the end of July. For Star Citizen Live SCL, where they talk with developers, it's live streamed on Twitch and then goes onto YouTube. By this time last year, they'd done 15 episodes. This year, they've done 4. Video content has been CIG's main line of communication for over 10 years. It's been the main tool for Star Citizen's open development. But without regular video updates about the things the company are working on, development just feels so much less open. I put up a poll a few weeks ago, and it's pretty clear that CIG's video strategy for 2025 is not working for a lot of people. Why has it dried up this year? Is this some sort of strategic decision by the company? Have they decided to silence Jared? Or did this just happen by accident? Let's look at the reasons why. First of all, let's start with this clip.
Welcome. I'm Jared, and I'm the host of Star Citizen Live, a show that we used to do every week and have only done like 4 times this year because a bunch of the people who I work with changed the very nature of our project. For the better. It's been a good year.
Well, I mean, I think that's slightly questionable, but anyway, what's he talking about? What is the change that's happened? Well, that's explained in this clip.
Looking back at 2025 so far, what's been the most important feature added to the game in your opinion?
Well, 2025 hasn't had a lot of features. That's the big difference this year. The big difference this year is we've cut way back on the feature work, and focused on the content work. Which is why you don't see as many ISCs and whatnot, because there just aren't that many features in development right now.
I realize that.
We're fixing the ones we have, and we're trying to close out, Squadron 42.
So that's Jared's main reason for why we've had less content this year. The focus in the company has been on fixing the features they've got, and it's also been on finishing Squadron 42. And so they've not really put any major new features into the game this year. Is that a good enough reason to shut down video content? I'm not convinced it is, and I'm going to go on to, in a minute, some suggestions of things they could cover, but that's the main reason coming out of the company itself. But there are other reasons and other things going on in the background that may be affecting the lack of content.
Oh, and before I forget, the ISC team is hiring. We're looking for 2 more of the game capture folks. Those people that make the B-roll and stuff. You get to work in the most broken builds imaginable for like weeks before Evocati, and they're on NDA. So, and then you have to try to make unfinished stuff look great. It's legit some of the hardest work that we've got.
In order to get ISC episodes out, obviously they have more than just Jared presenting them. They have these people behind the scenes going into, as he said, broken versions of the game and providing video footage to put up on the episodes. It's got very, very good over the last few years, and they're obviously needing more people. Now, why do they need more people? And how does this affect the amount of content that's come out this year? One of the major things that's changed this year is that they've put out behind the ship episodes. So these shorter episodes with lots of video capture are basically adverts for the ships. They have the normal trailers for a lot of the ships still, but they are using these behind the ship episodes to promote the latest and greatest ship and to convince us to spend more of our money. That's all fine. That's part of what's got this project to where it is. But if they're doing that, does that mean they're not working on the normal ISC episodes? Maybe. I mean, they are hiring more people. Potentially, though, it's more than that. Potentially, they are working on Squadron 42 content. Maybe the guys who are doing the motion capture stuff already, maybe they're now being moved over to Squadron to start the marketing for that game. Maybe they're going to produce high quality in-game capture stuff for Squadron 42. Kind of makes sense. Or even maybe CitizenCon content, which we'll go on to talk about in a moment. But it is possible that Jared's team has been reduced, or potentially just is not big enough to pump out more content than they already are. Or maybe Jared himself is too busy and overworked.
When does CitizenCon work start for you?
It's already we've already filmed. We've already shot part of CitizenCon Direct already. I've written. Think about these things as written, but even the live CitizenCons are written from beginning to end and whatever. So I write those with the developers every year. We're about 70% fully written right now. We're about 15% filmed and put in just some things that we needed to do kind of early, because in order to access the people we wanted to access, we had them then. But yeah, it's underway.
Potentially that's new information to some of you. Maybe you weren't aware that Jared was so heavily involved in CitizenCon. He is one of the key people behind that event. And as he's saying here, he's already been working on getting the content ready for that. And so this man is very busy. He's not just sitting there doing some live streams every week and making one video a week. I think he's super, super busy. When I actually went to the studio back at CitizenCon last year, I did the studio tour. He's the guy doing the studio tours. Now, you got to remember, in that example there, he had done all of the hosting and all the preparation, I suppose, and all the getting ready of the actual CitizenCon that we'd just been to. And then after that, he immediately ran over to the studio and then did back-to-back studio tours for loads of people. And so this man is busy, and he's obviously very important to the overall project. Is he too busy? I mean, my impression with him is that he loves all this stuff. He loves probably doing the studio tours. He probably loves getting up on stage and hosting all the CitizenCon stuff, and he loves basically everything. Potentially, he's one of those more kind of workaholic type people, and sometimes that's okay. But is he too busy this year to actually push the normal video content out the door? Or potentially, it's more a creative kind of overwhelm. I mean, I try to make one video a week, and sometimes that feels exhausting. When you look at the amount of content that this man has put out for Star Citizen, as he says in this Reddit post, it's over 1,200 videos that he's overseen for this project. It must get to a point where creating videos every week, or multiple videos in some cases for him, it must get really challenging. It must be creatively and kind of mentally really, really exhausting to just keep pumping out content. And so there are questions around whether he needs some more help behind the scenes. I mean, we're speculating here. How can we really know? But he might be maxed out creatively. So is it time for some new presenting blood? Jared has been making content for a long time. His knowledge and understanding of the development would be almost impossible to replace at this stage. He's been there for so long. He is in, I think, all the key meetings. He just knows what's going on. He has a really good grip of what's happening. But would it be crazy to get somebody in who can lighten his load a little bit? Maybe somebody who can host things like Star Citizen Live, or do some of the linking segments for Inside Star Citizen. Again, I'm pretty sure he loves all that stuff, but if he has himself become a bottleneck for the content, then potentially bringing in some new faces could help. Potentially, like we said though, it isn't the on-camera stuff that's the bottleneck, but maybe just the energy to keep being creative and keep coming up with new ideas. We're going to help him out. You can suggest more stuff in the comment, but I'm going to run through some things now that I think maybe they should look at as kind of content ideas. This might not be the issue at all, but we're going to throw out what we think anyway. So obviously the main thing that you might be thinking is, why can we not have some video update stuff on Squadron 42? Well, they, a long time ago, just basically decided that they were going to keep that as spoiler free as possible. Now, at various points, they've shown little bits. They've put out occasional episodes and then stopped. Like they haven't really ever quite got off the ground with Squadron 42 marketing. And like I said, that might be what's going on in the background. They might be preparing Squadron 42 marketing, but they're not going to do this in normal ISC episodes. That's just not going to happen. But there are a number of things they could do. So we had a Star Citizen Live episode all about earning. And this was effectively a very long version of Calling All Devs. They had different people, they asked them a few questions, and then they moved on to somebody else. That was what Calling All Devs used to be. And I would argue that Star Citizen Live episode was probably the best content they put out all 2025. Small updates about lots of different things. That, in my opinion, should be a regular ISC type episode. We want to know what's happening. We want all the updates that we can get. And so far this year, like we've been saying, there's been almost none. Sprint reports were another popular episode that they used to do. Again, it's basically the same thing. Quick updates about what was going on in the project, updates on things that we already know about. It just used to work really well. But what about an update on engineering? Now, we had an unofficial update on engineering from Con42. So Torsten, who is the guy behind all this stuff, the engineering stuff, to the German community, did a fairly extensive update in an interview panel and told people what was happening. That information should probably have been on an ISC. And so we don't know when it's coming. They've said soon, but there must be some stuff that they can talk about in terms of engineering. And then there's little things, visual things that they could do. An update on their work on ray tracing. They've been working on ray tracing for a couple of years now. There must be some visuals that they can show us in terms of update. There's so many things in this project. It's such a wide project. There must be enough to get more content out of the door. Ship updates. Now, ships, everybody loves ships. CIG loves selling ships. It wouldn't be mad to have some short updates for some of the ships that they've announced they're working on this year. So We obviously know from the monthly reports that they're working on ships like the Gatak Raylan, which is now in pre-production. The Ironclad is moving through certain stages of development. Even things like the Apollo Medevac and Triage, and the big one may be the RSI Perseus as well. It wouldn't be crazy, and they've done it plenty of times in the past, it wouldn't be crazy just to have an IRC episode just looking at where these ships are at the various stages they are. Just a little bit of video showing the updates, bit of in-game, potentially in-engine stuff, where they are at. A nice little episode about that. That's one thing they could do. It is worth saying at this point that this video isn't meant as some sort of personal attack on Disco Lando himself. He, more than anyone, I think has been the key person that has made Star Citizen's development actually feel open over the years. He was a backer before he was a CIG employee, and his love for the project has made him the perfect person to show us behind the scenes for so many years. As we've covered, there are just many reasons why the video content and open development has dried up this year. It's not like it's just his fault. But the video content drying up this year is a problem. There are many different types of people following this game. For a lot of people, the thing that keeps them interested, engaged with the project, is the idea that this is all heading somewhere. Last year at CitizenCon, the yearly convention that CIG holds, the company laid out its long-term plan, 1.0. And it's going to be a long journey to get there. But in my opinion, CIG has to return to regular and open video content as we go on that long journey. Speaking just for myself, without those regular weekly updates that we've had for over 10 years now, I found myself less engaged with the project this year. I've played the game less, I've played other games a lot more, and to a certain extent, maybe that's healthy. It's probably quite a good thing for a lot of people to do, to take a break from Star Citizen. But I imagine CIG doesn't want people taking extended breaks. Star Citizen's open development over the last 13 years has been one of the reasons why people have spent $800 million on this game. The weekly video updates have kept people interested even when the game itself hasn't been that interesting. The regular peeks behind the curtain have been a great hype machine. CIG don't really want people to take extended breaks from following along, because if they're not engaged, they won't buy ships and CIG will make less money, and well, ultimately, that's not good for the company or the project. So, CIG, my request is that you give Jared whatever he needs. More team, a sidekick presenter, less responsibilities, whatever he needs to make the video content great again. Bring back open development. Let us be excited. Give us something to talk about on a weekly basis.